do you want to go first?
Sure, but give me a time limit.
Oh, how about 5 minutes to share your life story?
Yes, 5 minutes. All right. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Gary Leeman. I grew up in New Jersey as the heir apparent to a family truck repair business. So I knew from the get-go, like kindergarten, I was going to become a mechanical engineer, and then I was going to go work in my grandparents' truck repair business. So the condition I had to meet was I had to get a degree before I could join. So I went to engineering school, and at the end of senior year, before I entered, my grandfather had already passed away a few years prior, and my grandmother sold the business. So I went, got my engineering degree, went to work in a medical products company, and my first mentor said, "I got good news and bad news. Good news is you're bright. Bad news is you're not an engineer." So he gave me a life plan, basically, which I followed. He said, work for 5 years, get an MBA, and figure out what you want to do. And by the way, he gave me a reading list. He said, you're an engineer, so you haven't been educated. So I read the books and found a company to pay for my MBA at night. And then I went into like a strategic business development role at Starbucks. Was there for about 10 years. Ended up going back into engineering, leading their industrial engineering department, basically store design. Was offered an opportunity to come to Texas to be innovation and continuous improvement lead. That job didn't work out. And when I was networking, I ran into a couple guys that were starting a little business, a little SaaS company. And I was really intrigued by their idea and technology. But I never thought I would join a startup, even though I had wanted to start my own business a couple times. And they just, over the course of a couple months, we got to know each other and they offered me a leadership position. So I jumped at that and entered 5 years of startup life, which was crazy. At the second year mark, we found EOS. We implemented it. It turned the company around. I was able to exit the last 18 months with that company. We grew revenues 5x, increased our profitability. But more importantly, I was able to build a leadership team and hand off my 5 hats so I could leave it stable. And not knowing what I wanted to do next, I figured consulting would be a good gig, fit my need for new creative problems to solve and constant challenge and change. But then somebody asked me if I had considered becoming an EOS implementer. And I had loved EOS when we were using it at the company, and I just had never thought of it. And the more I looked into it, the more excited I got. And it just fills all the buckets. I was never really a corporate guy, but I really liked developing people, leading, coaching, mentoring. And that's what I do now. I do that for entrepreneurs and their leadership teams. And it's just a wonderful life. I just essentially, every day I get up and I just have a help first mentality. And everyone I meet, I look to see how I can help them. And it brings all sorts of interesting conversations and topics and problems to solve. And I love that. So that's where I am today.
Awesome. Does anyone have questions for Gary? Not yet.
Find a path.
Okay, Katherine, you're up.
Okay. Well, I'm Katherine Bradford, and goodness, it would take me probably 45 years to tell you all the things I've done. I'm just teasing. I grew up in Lubbock, Texas, and went to Texas Tech, so I'm a Red Raider. I I landed in finance because I was making straight A's. My first real job, I was an outside plant engineer for Southwestern Bell. I was with Bell for many years, and that's where I taught myself programming and IT and all different kinds of aspects in the technical world. I left Bell, I retired and started working for multiple types of companies in IT. Moved to Africa, worked in IT for an oil company, moved back. IT had kind of really changed while I was gone in Africa. So a good friend of mine who was my mentor said, "You're 6 foot, blonde and technical, you should be in sales." Moved into sales, did a lot with startups like Gary did as well, and worked quite a bit with a lot of different industries in sales, and started working I was the vice president of operations for a company that had asked me to come over and straighten out some of the things that were going wrong. And in the meantime, I met a wonderful person, Lisa Martin, who developed a tool called Accelerate. And goodness, 9 years ago now, she called me up and said, "We have more business than we know what to do with. Would you come to work for me?" And I said, in a heartbeat. So I have a very odd background in that it's technical and sales and process and all kinds of things. But what I'm doing now, it's my dream job. So I'm a grandmother of 8. I'll soon have 10. I'm excited about that, and have 5 kids with my wonderful husband, Bill. And we have one spoiled rescue dog. It's very spoiled.
But does that mean you have twins coming, or do you just have 2 different people having babies coming up?
Two different. Bill and I are a blended family. I had a starter husband, and now I have the keeper. So he had 3 and I have 2. My 2 had the 4, and then Bill's kids, looks like each one of them are going to have 2. So we will have 2 grand each, so 10. So we're excited.
That's wonderful. And so the Accelerate that you work on, just so that everybody understands, is a tool based on spreadsheets that automates whenever you guys come into a company and you find a mess of spreadsheets and a mess of reports and a mess of calculations. You guys just come in and clean her right up, right?
Well, it's actually, yes. And we go beyond spreadsheets because we have the ability to take data from all different sources. We can grab it in and manipulate it. We keep them in that friendly Excel environment because most people, especially in accounting, that's their environment of choice. So it's a tool that it's not only the tool, but it's also the methodology that Lisa and Maria have developed that allows us to automate processes. Mm-hmm. So it's fun.
Gotcha. So you're automating the processes while keeping it in the user interface that everybody's familiar with, the Excel program.
Right, because in the background, I'm grabbing SQL databases, I'm using Access, I'm doing all kinds of things in the background. Gotcha. But they hit a button in Excel and they're happy.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Any questions for Katherine?
So Katherine, you said your first job out of school was process engineering. Did you get an engineering degree?
No, it was actually an outside plant engineering degree.
Outside plant.
I do. I really wish I had. Once I've seen in talking with the wonderful Brandy, I should have been in engineering because that's logic and math. That's my forte. But no, telephone engineering, there were no degrees at that time in that. And I was hired based on an interview that I did, and I answered all 6 questions that Bell wanted answered correctly. So they found me a job, and the job was an outside plant engineer. It was in Lubbock, and it was very interesting. I learned a lot. So it was more on the job training, Gary.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
My
So
question was going to be for either of them, if they, just to get a depth of them, was if they did extracurricular things in college, like sports, band, singing, or just work part-time, or that just, just a 2 or 3 word answer.
Sure. Well, I mean, I'll start. I played saxophone as a kid, played all the sports. When I went to engineering school, and I think my mentor would have told me this going in, every elective I got to take, which were, I think, a total of 8 electives, right? When you're in engineering school, you have to get 133 engineering credits. So there's very few choices for your 5th or 6th class. And I took painting, sculpture, poetry, sociology. I took anything but math or science because I needed a break. Yeah, I'm not really, I'm logical. I'm just happen to be good in math and science. So that allowed me to be an engineer, and I'm mechanical. I'm into cars, fixing things, but yeah, I'm probably more of a frustrated artist than an engineer.
Check.
Goodness. Well, I was always athletic, basketball, that sort of thing, but women's sports were not like what they are today. Tried out for the Texas Tech diving team and swam and that kind of thing. I sang, but only in church because God forgives. I played the piano for a while. I'm just, my whole thing was, I love to read, and I love mathematical type situations, and I love to solve problems. So I was busy during college, took care of my little brother as well as worked, and my wonderful parents put 5 kids through school. So was always working. So
Yeah, Catherine, that reminds me, because David asked that question. So I started working with a paper route, and then cutting lawns and shoveling driveways when kids used to do that. And then every summer I would go with my grandmother and work in the shop as a mechanics assistant. And then in high school, I had an after-school job because I wanted to buy a car and fix it up and soup it up. And then in college, I worked every summer for my uncle, who was a general contractor mason, and he ensured that I go back to school at the end of every summer by essentially torturing me in the heat, digging ditches and mixing concrete by hand and all that. So seems like I've always had a job. And it just was natural. It was never it never felt like a burden. It felt like, I wanted to earn everything that I bought. So I just always worked and paid for things.
And I think we can all agree that the high work ethic is coming from both of y'all's achiever. That's usually the one that's driving the to-do list and getting things done in execution. What I find so fascinating with both of you, the Achiever Command combination, which is the pair that you two share, is only found 4% of the time, the way you guys have it, in the top 5 strengths. Only 4% of the entire world, across 34 million people that have taken this assessment, have Achiever Command as a pair. And it's so fascinating to hear that you were both in some sort of mathematics, engineering. You both went the operations route. and then ended up in consulting and doing this sort of operational process improvement consulting. To me, that's fascinating that you guys have such a similar path in kind of a big picture standpoint. And so then it gets me curious about your top 10. So when I click on top 10, I go, wow, okay, so now we have Achiever, Competition, Significance, Command. And these are not what I would have originally thought as engineering type strengths. I see sales all over the two of you. I see, oh, you'd be great in sales roles, but then there's this other undertone of this mathematics, this operations, this process improvement, and on the, the more technical stuff that goes along with the sales piece. So Gary, we'll start with you. I'd love for you to just share with us. I'll show your top 10 here. If you're looking at this, I mean, to me, you look more, engineering, because you got ideation right at the top, right? Which is that creativity, the innovation, along with the strategic thinking, and then the execution here, and then the sales starts sort of coming in as an undertone here. But I'd love to hear from you how you feel like your strengths all play into these three areas, which is, engineering, operations, and sales/consulting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So when I was younger, I would not have thought that I had any of that influencing. Right. So if you gave me this list and explained it to me, I'd say, oh yeah, I'm 50% the green, right? The ideation, strategic, analytical, and 50%, achiever, right? Work ethic, problem solver.
And
just
actually, if we click on top 5, you are looking closer to that, right? 40% green, 20%.
yeah, but I never viewed myself as influencing. I think, like a lot of people, I had a misconception about what it means to sell, and just I didn't necessarily, when I was younger, didn't view myself as a leader. I viewed myself more as an outsider, as a one-off. And then as I got into college and then in my career, it was mentors and older people, like the seniors that met me when I was a freshman, who started to explain what they saw in me, and it just started to become like natural. I didn't seek it out. I just happened to be moving into leadership positions everywhere I was, and not purposely, if you will. So again, it was kind of this accidental discovery of this part of myself I didn't really know or believed I had. And my friends been telling me for 15 years I can sell, and I've been arguing with them. But he's right. And as I now move into my new role with Abundance Minded and Help First, I don't view what I do as selling. I'm more like Zig Ziglar approach, right? I seek to understand. I seek to find out if somebody has an issue or a problem that I can help with, and then I offer a solution, whatever that solution may look like. And that feels very natural to me. It doesn't feel like selling. And I remember reading somewhere, if somebody has a problem and you have a solution, it's basically a moral obligation to let them know you have the solution. And so I look at it like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, competition, I think it's just, yes, I'm highly competitive, but I don't think of, driving my business through the lens of competition. But if I go and swim laps, if there's somebody in the pool with me and I'm about to take a break at 200 yards and I see that they did another flip turn, I go, well, I'll do another one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll keep going until they take a break. And they don't know I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no good reason to do this. But every time I get in the pool with a good swimmer, I get a much better workout. And I know that's the competition driving that.
It sounds like Catherine might give you a swim for your money.
So yeah, I mean, I just find this whole thing, it's I wouldn't call them hidden strengths. It was that I didn't really even understand myself and what this meant until I started to get older and then start doing work with you and others to start to understand what's really in me and what motivates me at the core.
Yeah, and just for everyone on the call, ideation, strategic, achiever, command, significance, futuristic, competition, self-assurance, these are all highly entrepreneurial strengths. So the fact that Gary has 8 of them in a row makes him extremely naturally, organically entrepreneurial. So it was really just a matter of time before you went out on your own, pursuing your own business, running your own ship.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of when you would do that.
Yeah, I always knew it, and my grandmother knew it. And yeah, I mean, look, knocking on doors and saying, "Do you want me to shovel your driveway?" That's entrepreneurial.
Right.
Right. And I had gone all the way to letter of intent to buy a couple of businesses in the past and didn't work out. And when I had a chance to do a startup, it was kind of late in life and crazy, but I had to do it.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's really, it's something that I wish I had started and leaned into much
Mhm.
more heavily earlier.
Yeah, I think we all can say that. I think all of us wish we knew then what we know now.
Right. Right.
Any
Yeah.
any thoughts or questions for Gary? From anybody?
So, hey,
Hey.
Brandy, a wonderful guest by the way, Red Raiders, Catherine. So yeah, I went to Texas Tech and Lubbock, so it's not everyone that mentions Lubbock. Anyways, both of y'all were very entrepreneurial. What is kind of what would you recommend? Where were some light bulb moments from both of y'all that you were on the right path? Right. I mean, you've mentioned kind of in your path, but I think we have these aha moments sometimes in our life that you can go back to and say, wow, okay, this really made sense to me now. So I see Gary nodding vigorously. So Gary, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I don't want to steal the airtime from Catherine. I just went on 2 long rants.
Okay, Catherine, that's right.
Well,
Yeah.
it really helped from the time that when I first met. I've been doing these evaluations of your personality and everything since I built Southwestern Bell. They love that. But until I really started talking with Brandy, I really didn't understand some of these things. But and how you put it all together, I guess that would be a good thing. However, I am, and I realize this now, I am rules based. And so a lot of the things when you say entrepreneurial, it's really not entrepreneurial. I just I want it done right. I want it done now. And I want it done in this, that was kind of that's my inside voice coming out. But that's how I learned to program, was because when I worked for Bell, they were so inefficient in a lot of areas. And one of them was programming. I mean, one of them was not programming, but they had all these different systems and different things. And it just drove me nuts. And for instance, I don't know if y'all are aware of when we went through divestiture, they were handling all the contracts in divestiture in Lotus. And I'm like, people, this is database. And so I taught myself, this was display 4, and DBase 4. And that's really where I started learning to program. So I think a lot of it is with my personality, it's not that I don't want to be entrepreneurial. I just want to get things done. And if you put me in front of your house and you show me a weed, you will really understand my personality, because you will not have a weed in your front yard. Got to get it done. So did that answer your question, or did I?
No, no.
I think in
oh, go ahead.
corporations too, it can be slow. And with the speed at which you both work,
Yeah.
smaller groups that can move fast are far more appealing.
Yes.
It is. It's also the other thing that's real appealing is the ability to. One thing I loved about working for startup companies is I wore multiple hats, and I could do anything that, to get things done. And I've been told all my, that, and I can sell. And it's not because I'm this salesperson. It's because tell me who you want to meet and I can make it happen, because I build relationships with people. And I think that's the woo factor, but I really care about Brandy. I care about the people I meet. And I think that the reason I got out of sales was partly because of that caring of the person I just sold something to. I had a company that I sold $1 million engineering design, and they messed it up and they yelled at my customer. And I was like, oh, this can't be the way, you don't treat people like that. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And that was one of the reasons I got out of sales, is because I didn't like how people treated their customers. So
that's really interesting. What, as I was listening to you, I'm relating to your ability to quickly, from both y'all, to quickly go in and assess and say, this needs to be fixed. Like, I'm looking at all these data points and I'm seeing these things could be better. Would both of you agree with that wherever position you go to, that was kind of at the top of your mind? And then how you fix things is relationships, right? Thoughts?
Yeah. And I want to point out, they both have what if thinking. What if this, what if that, what if this, what if that? Now, Gary's what if comes through strategic, which is bigger picture what if thinking, where Katherine's comes on the operational side, tactical side, which is the arranger. Both of those strengths have what if thinking. And so they actually make very good partners, because one's looking at big picture, one is looking at tactical operational side of things.
Yeah. So, and to answer the earlier question, like the aha moments, the number one quote when I started to learn to talk was, I can do it my own self. Any help from my parents, and I would say I can do it my own self.
Is that the command? Do you think that's the command?
I don't know what that is. That's I will figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. And then one of the earliest quotes that struck me and stuck with me till to this day was, and I actually had a poster in my dorm room. It was Einstein. Great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds. And I always felt that mediocrity was accepted. And it always bothered me. And I wondered why I wasn't getting along with people. Turns out, no, that wasn't the problem. It was other things I was doing. And then Picasso, he has a great quote, I'm always doing things that I cannot do in order so that I can do them. It's that experimental, let me try, let me figure it out. And those were kind of, as I started to think about why they meant something, indicators that entrepreneurs were where I belong. There were two other really main factors. I just never got along with a boss for more than a year or two. All of my managers, the relationship would run its course and then I would be done. And that's not great in corporate America. So I realized I was part of, that's me. That wasn't them. They were fantastic. I just didn't do well in that relationship where somebody was, making final decisions that I may not agree with. So that's certainly, I think, entrepreneurial. And honestly, if you think about finally taking the leap, it was as simple as rereading a poem called Invictus. And if you know the poem, it just says everything you need to know. I was debating whether I was going to make this leap, and I read that poem and it was done. It was, oh yeah, that's right. I've been off my path. This is the path I need to take. So I think it was inevitable and unavoidable, really.
I want to show you guys too that, for example, Gary, your strengths are all on the more rare side, except for a couple. So ideation is at 14%. And you can think at anything that's in the single digits is extremely rare, where things that are closer to 30% are found more often in society and more accepted by society. So ideation starts to get closer to getting out there, right? And ideation is also let's do it the non-traditional way. Let's not follow what the sheep are, where the sheep are going. That doesn't work for you. And then strategic is a little bit more, you find that type of thinking more often. You really find achiever more often. But then we go into, oh my God, command is only found 5% of the time in a top 5 capacity across, the 34 million people that have taken the assessment. So one, this is different. It's a different way of thinking, perceiving, acting, processing. It's also then gonna, set you apart from and make you feel weird and not like everybody else. And it also means people misunderstand you a lot as well. And then you have significance right behind it, which is also only found 6% of the time in the population. We've got futuristic at 13%. So now here comes in that, thinking 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, and you can picture it and it's more of a design. The ideation is maybe a little bit more engineer marketing, where the futuristic is a little bit more product design marketing. And then we have competition, which is 11%. So people don't understand why you always want to win. And then, oh my gosh, they don't understand why you're so confident in everything that you do. Right. And so forth. So, I wanted to point this out because you had said earlier that sometimes you felt like an outcast to some degree from everybody else. And I just wanted you all to see statistically, there's a reason for that feeling.
I can tell you this in hindsight, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was doomed to hit my ceiling at a company like Starbucks.
Mm-hmm.
Command, significance, competition, self-assurance are all anathema to kumbaya. It makes it very, very difficult to just go along to get along and, not speak up.
We can even see that here, Gary, right? You don't have any in this collaborative creative zone, or even the people relationship management. We don't see any blue. It really is, here's the strategy, let me influence it and let's get it done.
Yeah, it's work.
But what's so crazy, Brandy, is that both of them have said how important relationships are to them being happy. Like when they talked about sales, it was, especially Katherine too, she says, I can't live with myself if I'm selling something.
Right. But look at hers. She has that blue coming right in here too.
That's right.
And Gary didn't say relationships, he said principle. which I think is a
Mm.
little different. He has a set of, this is what is the right way to do things. And I think command often does that. Command is like a protector, and they believe in candidness and honesty and being truthful, and just, they can be very blunt. And a lot of times that'll sway towards the side of being principled and doing what's right. So I think you're hearing command come out that way for both of them. Because again, we can have a negative command, we can have a positive command, we can
Mhm.
have, these strengths kind of go on different ends of the spectrum too. But both of these guys have chosen a positive path with their strengths. They probably had great, parents and upbringing. Not to say that someone that doesn't have that can't be awesome. It's I just know them. And then, yeah, so Katherine, you've got the woo in here. She loves to win people over, but she also has this deep care for people and relationships and making sure that people are okay as well. Katherine, do you want to comment on that further?
Yeah, I think too, and I don't know if this comes into play, but some of the things that Gary was saying is they didn't, this boss didn't like me, or this or that. And I think that maybe when you, I don't know how to express this, but Gary, okay, because with me, I was told by a mentor, it's, it's okay to be tall and blonde. It's just not okay to be tall, blonde, and smart. And this was the generation that, that I came up in. And my whole thing was, okay, if you don't like it, I'm just going to be better. That was, so it's not that I'm defying people. I'm just like, oh, okay, well, I'm the worst critic of myself, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it right. And if, I don't care what it takes, but I think that society pressures do come in to whether or not you're going to show that, because like I have this command, but I was also brought up by a Southern lady. I mean, my mother was the epitome of the Southern belle. Mm-hmm. So when, people would, they would say something like that I knew was dead wrong, internally I'm going, okay, your mother said you got to be nice. But the other side of me is going, you need to do it right, and you need to do it right now. And when you talk about these, I mean, my all these, the strengths and stuff come out, especially when something is like going wrong, or I will forget all the societal norms. I mean, I was a outside plant engineer, and one of the engineers, we were riding, this was in Lubbock, and you'll appreciate this. In Lubbock, you can see the curvature of the earth no matter where you're standing, because everything's flat. Well, we were out in the country area going over some, they were going to cut in some new property. And between one country road and the other one was cotton fields. And all of a sudden we hear something on the radio about a guy that they used to move houses out there. Why they did this, I don't know, but he was tearing down cable. Anyway, all of a sudden, now I'm driving and I'm in a Ford Torino, and that sucker could go. And I look like Dukes of Hazzard, and I were on that cotton, patch, and hauled to the other thing, did a little spin out, got out of the car, and I had the mother finger up, just yelling at this guy who had a tractor trailer with a house loaded on it. And I'm in the middle of the road, nobody else but this car behind me. And my friend with his fingers in the dash going, oh my gosh. Well, he didn't see what I did. He had a kid that was about 10, maybe 8 or 10, on the roof with a broom holding up power. Screaming at him, you get that kid off this. He goes, you can't stop me. And I said, you want to bet? I mean, And then here came Southwestern Bell trucks and police and everything. But I would have ripped him apart, because again, that was, so my personality will forget all those norms when something like,
Mhm.
if you are like, if somebody tried to hurt Brandy, I feel real sorry for them.
Brandy,
I'm glad you're on my team.
Brandy,
Yes, ma'am.
may I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I'm listening to Katherine, and I think she's answered the question I was going to ask. I was wondering, how was she received being such a dominant source, going into these places as a woman and demanding that things be done right? And I think she just answered my question. I'm sitting here laughing.
Well, it's hard, Diane. It's really hard, because I was, and I talked with my dad one time and I said, Dad, this is what's going on. And he goes, sometimes you just have to put down your fighting gear and go do something else. And that's why I left Bell. I mean, I was seriously told I was too tall to be promoted because I was too intimidating to the men. And then I was told I was too pretty to be in sales. You can't fight that. And there's times and that's the reason I took early retirement at Southwestern Bell.
I really get you. I'm a Black woman, and I'm kind of like you. I like to see it done right. And I like to see people act the way they should. And I don't mind modeling it. But I notice that people get intimidated.
Well, and I think that's sad because, to be honest with you, Black women are my favorites. You are.
Well, all right, my girl.
No, because you tell it like it is. And like my grandmother had this lady she was helping because my grandfather was sick, and that lady was amazing. And she'd snatch your, as my mom said, she'd snatch your bald if you did something wrong. But she was always there to give a big old hug. But she was the one that told me, she caught me sneaking coffee out of my dad's cup, and she said, Lordy, Lordy, child, that's going to stunt your growth. Dang, I'm glad I drank coffee. I'm only 5'12", but So
Yeah,
if anybody gives you trouble, Diana, you send them to me, because
Well, I'm going to write
women
that
are
down.
wonderful.
I'm going to write that down. I tell you, because it's really been quite a challenge. I mean, I run into it every place I go, and has happened every place that I've been.
Oh, I hate that. I'm so sorry. I hate that. And I was not being flippant, because I really.
Oh no, I didn't take
So
it that
I hope
way
you
at
know.
all.
I think you are wonderful already. So, and
Well,
I think I think part of it is people. I lived in Africa, and I went to places where they'd never seen a white person before, especially not a 6-foot blonde one. So you do learn things that help you. And I think it's sad. I mean, because people from all over the world, I met them, and I love them. So.
and I know that you, Katherine, have, learned to kill them with kindness, with your woo as well, to get to where you need to go. I know for me, just to put my 2 cents in here for a minute, I would just shut up and listen and learn everything I needed to learn, so that I didn't need certain people around me anymore that were preventing me from growing into the shoes that I knew I could fill. And I also learned to gain a lot of alliances. And when you learn all the things you need to know around somebody and you gain alliances, and then if you can do what Katherine did, which is to also kill them with kindness, there are ways to maneuver and get around these things, but you do have to want to put the time and energy into learning how to do that. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, this is so unfair, and why do I have to do this and all this stuff? But the point is, you're either going to do it and you're going to navigate it, or you're not. So you just have to choose. Am I going to sit here in this state, having these things, quote unquote, done to me? Or am I going to figure it out? And am I going to figure out a way around it? And how am I going to do that? And if you're willing to learn those things, you can maneuver them, and you can face it and maneuver it and get to where you need to go, even against, against the things that are against you, the things that are going against the grain.
Well, I think you're exactly right, because it doesn't, it's, people can look at you physically and make a determination. And if they do that, I feel sorry for them, because, there's always so much to that person. And I think, though, that understanding your strengths I think the key here for me, that every time I'm with you, Brandy, I learn something new about myself and how to use these strengths, as opposed to just, that getting angry or whatever. It's of, you can use your strengths in a positive way, and not just have to boil over. So, and you're right. But my mother always said, you can get more with honey than you can with vinegar. So if I need to put that Southern voice on, I can definitely. She taught me well.
No fair.
Hey.
What other questions do you guys have for Gary and Katherine today?
Well, I want to just add something to the conversation about relationships. So I'm glad you brought this screen back up, because I was starting to worry I had zero blue at all. So I do have some blue. They're just not my top strengths. I mean, I think we can understand that when I was younger and when I was growing up, I was always, I wouldn't say an outsider. I was reluctant to join any clique or group. So I had friends in all the groups, but any group activities I would pass on, because I didn't want to be part of a group. As I went through my early years, and I was taught old school by a dad who said, you can get bullied and be bullied for years, and just take one beating. And so I was, very early on, I was a runt, right? I was the smallest kid in 10th grade. I graduated high school over 6 foot, but I was a very late bloomer. So it all worked out in the end, but that meant that I had to protect myself. And it's true, bullies don't want to fight. So you just have to, take one beating. Well, I have this overdeveloped sense of fairness. So once I was squared away, anytime I saw somebody else getting bullied, I would get involved. So that kind of turned into how I approached my teams. And when I hired somebody or had somebody on my team, their needs were paramount. And so I would act as a buffer. I would take, beatings for them, if you will. I would go in and accept the blame, so they didn't have that. I would give them credit for things that they did, not take it. So this overdeveloped sense of fairness kind of permeated everything I did. And as I started to develop professional relationships, it was with people that I knew I could trust, and with people that I would extend that kind of protection to. Right? It's a protector sense.
It is. That's the command.
And so that, like the Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 8, which is like something noble protector or something. I highly value relationships, but I don't seek them out. So it's weird. I like meeting people. I like networking, social events. I like talking. I'm a class clown that never grew up. I'm generally not happy in a meeting until somebody's laughing. I will put my own agenda to the back until I get a laugh. It's totally inefficient. But I need to get there with people so that they understand me. And, you know, when I do form a relationship, I hold it dear. But I don't continually try to build more and more and more new relationships.
Yeah, and the way you can also think about this for everyone on the phone is it's not that Gary, doesn't have relationship building skills and he can never have relationships. That's not it, right? It's more of like, how do you approach it? And it's also who are you going to be having a relationship? You're going to be interested in engaging with other ideators and entrepreneurs. You're going to be interested in engaging with hardworking people that are having this achiever. Because relators, they relate. So you're going to relate more with people that are more like you rather than people that are less like you. And like you said, you're using your command to protect those people around you. And then therefore people like you and they want to be around you because they feel safe or protected around you. So I think that, and competition is another great one, right? If you find another competitor that's a friend of yours and you guys go compete, you play racquetball, you play pickleball, you play tennis, whatever it is, swim, that's fun. And if it's fun for both of you to go play a round of golf and compete against each other and you both enjoy that camaraderie, those are going to be the types of friendships or relationships that you have. It's just not going to be to have a relationship just to have it, which is the blue, right? I love to build and have a relationship just to have it. There's no need or reason behind it. Where, the other strengths are like, no, I can have relationships, but we need to be achieving something. We need to be solving problems. We need to be competing. Like something has to be happening for us to have the relationship. Does that make sense?
It does. And it just, that there's a little cringe, like it feels like, transactional in nature. Like, I want to have this relationship because I want something out of it, but it's so true. And I guess I just need to accept it. It's not necessarily wrong. I like people, but if like you said, if we pick up the ping pong paddles and they don't want to keep score, I'm not enjoying the game of ping pong.
Well, Brandy, doesn't that also relate back to the maximizer
Yeah,
component?
I mean, they both have maximizer, they both have significance. They're going to be wanting to spend their life and their time and their energy doing significant things, creating a significant impact. And they want to spend their time around amazing people with amazing talents, right? That are, that either they can coach to help maximize or that are maximizing something. I mean, that's just who they're drawn to. And we're all drawn to something different. Some people are drawn to children and animals or gardens and are trying to help those things grow, while other people are attracted to diamonds. I mean, there's just differences. And I think if we can all just accept, this is what I'm made of, this is who I am. So how do I leverage that to contribute to society and the community and to the benefit of others? There's a place for everybody.
Is that also a part of strategic?
Strategic is like the what if thinking. You can think of strategic as the navigation or the plan. It's the big picture. Strategic has very little to do with hanging out with other people or relationship building. It's more to do with, how do I get from point A to point B the most effectively and get rid of all the distractions and obstacles ahead of time. Now, if that's pointed towards creating a relationship, then it's the way that I'm going to get to that relationship. But strategic is more of a way of navigating towards an end result.
Well, don't you think too that like when you are I don't know if they know this, but I have a ministry I've had for 18 years that helps people out of work. And I do it because I care, not because, I mean, it's not one of those, I don't get paid or anything like that. But when, but negates. However, one of the gentlemen that spoke at Career Jumpstart, I met him first and we were sitting across from one another, and I'm talking 90 miles a minute and his arms are going up and and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's an extrovert just like me, blah, blah, blah. And we're just, and the end of the conversation goes, I'm an introvert. I'm like, no, you're not. You're just like me. And he's like, no, I'm not. He says, but anybody can act, you can. He said, the difference is you're going to go home and you're going to drive your husband crazy because you're going to have so much energy. And I'm going to go home and take a nap. Some of these things you can step out of your style and do them. You're just not going to feel good or comfortable in that, because I can walk up. My husband, when we first started hanging around, he picked me up at the airport and this girl was hugging me and he goes, oh, did you meet somebody that you knew on the flight? And I'm like, oh no, I just met her on the plane. You amaze me. But I mean, and she became my friend. So, I don't know if that's,
Yeah, I think it's really useful what you're saying, because everybody can compete in a competition. They just might not be motivated to win, or they might not enjoy the competition, but everybody can compete. Everybody can answer the phone at a call center. Some people are going to love it. Other people are going to hate it. Everybody's going to address that call differently. So it's really a matter of, we can all do everything. It's just a matter of, are we innately motivated by that? And does it get us going? Are we engaged, or does it shut us down? Are we good at it, which is the skill? Do we enjoy doing it, which is the passion? We're trying to get all these things aligned. We're trying to get what we love doing, and we're trying to get skilled up, and we're trying to get ourselves in the right environment to grow our specific unique seed, whatever that is, and however much water and sunlight and soil that needs. We're trying to get all those things aligned when we're looking at the strengths, so that you can be at your best every single day.
I just love the fact that Katherine, from her personality, seemed very matter of fact. Like if I was working for Katherine, I'd be like, oh man, she is gonna be like, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And then she says, oh, but I just meet people on the plane and they're my new best friends. Where Gary seems very approachable and everything else, but then everything he says is, oh yeah, man, if you're not on the same page, dude, I'm out. I'm gone. So it's so interesting, their personalities and then their work, process is just, that's interesting to me.
Yeah, because their way to influence is different. Their way to execution is different. Their way to strategy is different. We all have to do all these things, and they have some ways that are very similar, the way they approach it, but then they have some that are super different. Like Gary's woo is 24 versus Katherine's woo being, clear up at number 3, for example.
Well, I think too that like my mother used to tell me, because I do have a high IQ, and my mother knew what my IQ was because she worked at the school where they tested you. But anyway, but the key was that my mother would always say, you have no patience for stupidity. Mm-hmm. And I thought about that because I was working, I taught school, and that teaches you patience. I taught computer courses and things, but there was a kid and I was trying to teach him about military time. And seriously, I tried every way and he just wasn't getting, 2,400 out. He was not getting that. But he was trying. So I called my mother on the way home and I said, Mother, you've always told me I had no patience for stupidity. That's not it. I have no patience for laziness. So if like he's, you know, the way we come forth, maybe not always, for instance, if Brandy calls me up and said, Katherine, I need you to come over here to my house and pick up this paperclip. I'd be right over there and pick up that paperclip because Brandy respects me and respects my knowledge. But if somebody calls me up and says, Katherine, you're going to come over here and you're going to pick up this paperclip, I'll say, yeah, really? So I don't know if that fits in with your, how you approach people that you were saying, Brandy.
Yeah, it just sounds like you have a strong need to understand someone's intent and to understand if we have a trusting relationship and how I feel about you and you feel about me and what the reciprocity is. Like, it just feels like there's a need there, right? To have that understanding. And then once you come to that understanding, you'll go the lengths for somebody. But until that,
well, I think, yeah, I think too that it's, I am not a woman's liver. I love all people, but I really was, you had to work harder. You had to, you had to prove you were smart. And I didn't like people not respecting people, anybody. Another way to show who I am, one aunt bit my sister and my mother got me out there smashing every single one of them, screaming, how dare you bite my sister? So that protection is, I protect people. So, and even if I don't know them, I don't like anybody being mean to someone. So.
Yeah.
That's come across
Yeah,
in
it's funny.
both of yours. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's funny, like Katherine, when she said she used to think she didn't have patience for the less intelligent. I would have sworn that when I was younger, I used to say, I wouldn't mind teaching, but I'd teach gifted and talented. But then, much like Katherine, it wasn't actually how intelligent or quickly someone learns. It was the effort. And I'll help anybody and have all the patience in the world if they're trying. If they're trying to improve, trying to figure something out, I'll come up with, everything I can. And if I still can't do it, I'll go search someone who can teach them something. It's not how quickly someone can learn. It's for me, are they trying to get better at something? Then I'll help them. But if they're just wanting somebody to do something for them, right? If they're not going to put the effort in, then I'm not going to put the effort in. I can't want it more than they want it. I can't care more than they care.
Well, you guys have been awesome today. We're 5-6 minutes over now, so I'm gonna have to just
I gotta bounce.
Close up this conversation. But thank you so much. You guys are amazing. We appreciate your candidness. That's the greatest gift you could give us, is your authenticity and your candidness today. So thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Well, Brandy, you're wonderful.
So are you. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you both soon.
All right.
Okay.
Bye all.
Enjoyed it, you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Enjoyed you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.